Avoir. Welcome to another episode of FitPet Boston Talks. My name is Leah Lodato, and I'm the host of the show. And today I'm joined by my spouse, Lori.
Hello.
And we're just going to do a general check-in. If you have been following the podcast for any length of time, you know that there have been some awesome interviews on this show with local Boston area dog handling professionals, where we discuss our lives, our dogs, and careers. So feel free to check out those episodes. This year, I'm taking a little hiatus from traveling around trying to make time with other people, and I'm just focusing on
Ducks.
My work, my new dog, Raven, and developing, as good of a relationship as I can with my new puppy, and taking care of the chores that need to be done and working.
A good relationship with her puppy.
Yeah.
No humans.
Yeah, actually less humans for sure.
Less. That's a goal. Actually. Surround ourselves with less humans.
Not intentionally. I don't think it's a goal.
Things have just been a little hairy lately.
A lot of the people that we spend time with are also other dog people. They tend to be
We love other dog
pretty
people.
reliable, yeah.
I always want to hang out with dog people.
It depends on the sport. One thing that I've really been enjoying lately is my Toss and Fetch Monday Night League.
Oh, here we go.
I just love
Giddy
Mondays
up.
now. Who loves Mondays?
Monday.
This girl.
She's tearing up.
No.
She's tearing up over Mondays.
I've got a film.
No,
on my
really, you're
glasses.
like, I have to go. It's Monday.
Yeah, I love it. It's so fun. Great little community. We just finished up the June session, which is, they call it the 95 session because it's a 90-second run and only 5 of your catches count towards a total score. So a lot of dogs can get 7 catches, maybe even 8, some of them if they're really fast, in 90 seconds. And your lowest ones are dropped, so you hang on to the top 5 scores. So it runs a little bit different than any other disc sport, really. But we just finished up that session. It was awesome. And we're going to head into summer on the 24th of July. So it's going to be warm. I've never competed with Ruben in the summer before.
I think he's going to be fine.
I think he's going to be fine too. There's plenty of shade where we park at that location, and it's a 60-second run, so it shouldn't be too crazy, but he is not a fan of the heat, and it shows.
Oh, let's tell people what we do, because they're going to ask the same questions. This would be a question. How do you keep your dog cool?
Oh.
Because we work out of our cars for the most part.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I put a visor in the front at the windshield.
Yeah, so firstly, we try to park in the shade at all costs if we can. Sometimes there's no shade, but if that's the case, then we make our own shade. So, sorry, Lori, do you want to continue?
I wanted to look up that, because all of us put that, so we all put the thing on the windshield, and then we have that silver barrier I have that allows wind to blow through but reflects the sun.
Mm-hmm. It looks
I don't know what the name of it is, though.
It looks like a perforated silver sheet.
I know,
almost.
But people are going to want to know the name.
Yeah, and you can get like car-friendly clamps that have rubber on the ends so that they don't scratch your car, and you can you can attach those sheets to the outside of your car, and they're really lightweight, so
the ones that were really popular were called Pro Select Solar Canopies, and some people just throw it over their entire car, and I have to tell you, they work. Because for bite work, I'd have the truck out there and have the windshield visor, and we have our fans. And what are the best fans?
The Ryobi battery powered fans
the
are
best.
They're really they're the only gig in town. I haven't even seen anybody with a different type of fan, to be honest.
So Ryobi fans, Pro Select Solar Canopies. Pro Select is a Pet Edge brand. I used to work for that company back in the day. And they freaking work. And then something for the front of the windshield. And some people get cooling jackets. Leah uses it for Ruben, but he has such a short coat
I've just been wetting him down, and I put the fan right in front of the crate. So after our run, I wet him down with cold water, and then I put the fan right in front of his crate. And most of the time, if I check back in on him, he's got his mouth closed and he's just chilling in there. So he stops panting pretty quickly. My problem with Ruben particularly is like once he's out of the car, he just doesn't perform, and when it's hot, he just gets so fried and brain dead when it's hot. And one thing about disc in particular, it's like the demand on the dog is really high. So, I mean, just their ability to track and catch a disc at a distance, even if it's only 10 yards, is pretty phenomenal. To ask, like, if we asked the athlete, to go out on the field and they were feeling 50%, because they couldn't sweat to cool themselves down in that heat, right? It would change the game a lot. So for some dogs, like, they just really struggle. And Ruben's not a working dog. He's a small rescue dog, and I ask a lot of them, especially in the distance games. Some dogs are bred for...
He's a mutt.
Mm-hmm. Some dogs are bred for having a higher heat tolerance. Like, we see a lot of border collies out when we play. We see like Australian coolies, Malinois, Labs, and when a dog is like bred, they breed them for heat tolerance, especially like those Labs, right? So they have to spend a lot of time outside, whether they're trialing or hunting or whatever. Like, they really have to be hardy. And it doesn't mean that they can't have heat stroke or whatever, but I mean, I even see it in Raven. Like, she's 9 months old and she's nuts. Like, even when it's hot out, I don't see her slowing down like I see Ruben slowing down when the heat kind of turns up.
Raven would have heat stroke, and because she wouldn't be able to stop herself from... Colton is a good example. If Melissa is listening to this, I remember one time we were in the field, Melissa called Colton's name, and he didn't come. Unheard of for Mr. Colton not to listen. And at first, Melissa was frustrated. Why isn't he coming? He always comes when I call him. And I said, Melissa, I was like, he's messed up. I was like, the heat's got him. He can't handle it. He doesn't even have a brain left. You have to go get him. Because we were playing, she was playing ball with him. And I was like, he doesn't know when to stop. So sometimes you have to be there to tell your dog to stop. Like, so remember that too. Some dogs who have super high drive, or even if they're not bred for it, even if they're not, some dogs just don't have the brain to stop, and we have to help them. And, you have to soak them down right away if their temp gets too high, and just look to see if they're getting slightly disoriented, which is what happened to Colton that day. He was kind of just like walking around in circles, and brought him back and cooled him off as fast as we could.
Well, it makes sense. They're not getting as much oxygen to their kakuza.
So that's that.
Yeah, and I did mention in a few podcasts ago, I was talking about how dogs lose water through panting because they pant to cool themselves off. So when the air temperature is cooler around them, that's how they cool themselves off. So, their body temperature is like 101, 102, right? So the air temperature has to be lower than that in order for them to cool themselves off. But even if it's like 90, like that's... by the time the air gets down into their lungs, right, that's not, and if it's humid, it's just not, it's not of the quality to cool them off. And what happens is when they pant so vigorously, that activity, it causes evaporation in their lungs. So when they're panting, their lungs are evaporating water, and that's what's drawing the water out of their system. So having water to rehydrate them after they're done their activity is really important. And if the water can be cool, that's even nicer. It doesn't have to be ice cold, but cool water will help regulate that body temperature. And then another thing that I've done is I've had a canopy that I just put over my whole car. So those pop-up tents that you see at fairs or whatever, the soccer dads have them. You throw that in the back of the car. I can put it up. I think I put it up by myself last time. I can't remember, but you can shade your whole vehicle with that. So there are ways of helping. I would say once it hits like 90, 92, I'm considering not going to the event.
I remember back in the day, Back in the day, buffet. I found out David Allen Boucher retired.
I know.
Because we were playing 106.7 for the dogs, with the fireworks that aren't just on July 4th, but really just the whole month of July, which is super exciting. Yeah. And yeah, he retired. So they were listening to 106.7 and I'm like, where's David Allen Boucher? And it was Delilah.
Yeah, Delilah's
anyway,
long-standing.
I digress.
Too.
What were we talking about again?
We were going to say one more thing about the heat. I said if we...
Oh, back in the day buffet.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people hated the idea of keeping your dog in a well-air-conditioned house because it made the dog even more intolerant to the heat.
Mm-hmm.
And when I used to work in the kennel, if the temperatures got high, yes, we would close up and put the air conditioner on. But for the most part, I have to say that the dogs were cool. I mean, cement ground. They did fine. If we had a dog that seemed to be, an older dog, that would be different. We put them in a separate room with air conditioning. If it was, any dog like 9-year-old and older, I tend to put them in the air conditioned room. But yeah, they didn't want to have dogs coming out of this very well air conditioned dog trailer because
that's not an old school. As I hang with the retriever folk online,
they say the same thing.
People leave their dogs intentionally outside in the heat.
Yeah, so that they get used to it.
They get used to it. Yeah, especially since so much hunting happens in like Texas, West Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, but even, those areas get really hot in the summertime, and their hunting season, I believe they have like dove season is in like early September, and we all know that early September
dove season?
They
there
shoot
they
doves.
Go. Oh, yeah, sweet doves.
Sweet doves. And
pew, pew.
September is practically the middle of summer, right? So, I mean, they are working their dogs in that crazy
all right, so
heat.
They still feel that way.
Yeah,
I kind of feel that way too. I like having Buddha downstairs with everybody because it's hotter down there.
Just because I don't do anything currently that would require hunting doves in the heat.
Can you imagine your dog walking out of its air-conditioned trailer like a movie star, taking its robe off, dropping the cigar? Anyway.
Well, the dog trailers that the retriever people use are not air conditioned. They have like grates at the top of them, so they push the air down. But they're not air conditioned, but they're not in the middle of the sun without any reprieve either. So, I think it's just like what your tolerance is for transporting dogs. Like some people feel comfortable having the crate ratcheted down in the back of a pickup truck and driving the dogs around. Some people are comfortable with the trailer. I don't feel comfortable
with that, if anyone's wondering.
Yeah, like some people are okay with like the cap tops over the back of a pickup truck.
Dude, those Rufflin kennels they get
hot.
Fucking hot.
Yeah.
They're so hot that I'm cooling my car down. But for the most part, if I can pull it off with having the windows down, I don't want to have the air conditioner going crazy.
Yeah. But generally speaking, when you go to an event, unless you have a compressor or you have not a compressor, unless you have like hookups on your RV, so you're using electricity, it's generally frowned upon to leave your car running. Unless it's like so unbearably hot. But, if you go to a dog event for 4 hours, like I said,
leave your car running.
You can't leave your car running for 4 hours. Yeah. So
dog events are different, by the way. We're not talking about like you're bringing your dog around the city in a car and you think that somebody's not going to try to steal your car. Like that's not what we're talking about. Yeah. Dog people, I love them. You can keep your shit everywhere. No one's touching your stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone's super respectful.
Yep.
I love it. But have no fear that if you drive around in the city
and leave your dog in the car, someone's going to call the cops
or steal your car. Yeah. Or they're going to break the window, which is super hairy condition if your dog is aggressive and somebody thinks they're saving your dog, even though you have the air conditioner on, and then you let Mitzi out. And then Mitzi kills you. Yeah. So like no good deed, dear friends.
Mind your own business. How about we all just do that?
No. I will not.
Yeah. How about we do that?
Don't you dare.
Yep. It works. It really does.
Get out of my yard.
It really does. If you mind your own business.
Some people put a sign. My dog's
really
listening to
works.
Bob Marley.
Yeah, leave them alone.
Chill. They'll still steal your car.
So what else did you want to talk about today, Laura?
All right. Well, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Talked a little bit about some tips for to beat
We can
the
talk
heat.
about fat dogs.
Ooh, fat dogs.
Okay.
They're everywhere.
Well,
They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
while,
Jamie, if you're listening to this, you know.
while we believe in body positivity, fat dogs, this don't do it. So this was spurred on because I have this dear, dear dog that I absolutely love, and I groom her. I groom her, and she's so overweight, and I'm asking the dad, who's again one of my favorite fellas. I told you fellas are really rare these days. I said, "What are you feeding her? What are you feeding her?" And he said just her food. And sometimes I tell my nutrition coach that I'm eating everything on my macros, that I am following my diet perfectly, and I have no idea how I could have possibly gained weight. No idea. And that is a lie. I know exactly when my weight will be low, when it will be high, why it wasn't low. I know you're snacking. It could be just a little nibble here and there, but those nibbles add up, folks. So if you're giving your dog a munchkin daily or a donut daily, or they're eating the kids' food, then your dog is getting a lot more calories than you think. So don't make your dog fat. They're not like us. They can dig into the cupboard. The cupboard. Do people say cupboard anymore?
Yeah.
Okay. The pantry. And just take all the chocolate. We see you with the whipped cream. We see what you're doing. You can't give everything to the dog. And you know what? If you do, then cut down on the freaking kibble.
Yeah.
Because an obese dog just doesn't live as long.
Yeah.
And we don't want to get rid of our friends. These are our friends. They don't crave cheesecake, people. Just get their diet under control so that they live longer. They have healthier joints. They don't have heart problems. They can have the same problems as we do.
Yeah, I hate to say this because I know that somebody might be listening, but when I go to retriever trainings or something and people have English labs that are overweight and then I'm watching them run 200 yards, I'm just like, oh no.
Oh my God, it's
so
much.
Yeah, because it's one thing to like have your dog be a little hefty and they're a couch potato, but it's another thing if you're, like a trainer, like you want to train and you show up with your buddies or girlfriends or whatever, and you want to do these like, and people are just, they want to run really long marks because it is so impressive and put their dogs in these situations where the dog is going to do it because they're bred to do it and they have the drive to do it. But if they're carrying a few extra pounds, it's just making everything so much more stressful on the dog in the long run. So if you're working your dog, it should be even more important. And even if you have an English lab, I'm not talking about like a British lab like you see on Slingley Gun Dogs online or, these really svelte British labs that look like that are really field labs. Let's be honest. They look like field labs, but they come from England, English stock or whatever. Like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the English labs that come from like a Cushnet
Yeah,
Mass,
the Wonder Bread,
right? Of
the lab world.
The chunky labs, right? Like, and a Cushnet is not a breeder. It's just a place near the Cape where a lot of breeders exist. But even if you have an English lab, so one that's a little bit more boxy, you still should see the waist. You still should feel a rib. It's okay to keep them a healthy weight, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if you don't have to alter your dog, especially if you have a male, don't. If you don't have to, don't. Like, there's no reason to do it.
Unless there's a medical issue that arises and you have to.
I just said, unless you have to. But I feel like people get pushed into doing that because the vet says to do it, or they just their friends are all doing it or whatever. But if you
friends
neuter,
are all doing it.
it's true. Like the neighbor did it to their dog when they were whatever. Like you don't have to alter your dog if you don't want to, because when you do that, it immediately changes their metabolism and changes their hormone profile and like the things that, you know, and the way that they're going to gain weight. So yeah, just keep your dogs fit and you do it through food. And one thing that I personally think is if you start feeding your dogs less than the recommended amount of food. So like, I don't know, let's say you have a 55-pound dog and you're feeding them a cup of food in the morning and a cup of food at night. Does that sound reasonable?
Sure.
Okay. Like if they're getting fat, I wouldn't feed them a half a cup in the morning and a half a cup at night. I would try to switch their food to something that did have a little bit more volume, because when you cut the food in half, you're also cutting all the micronutrients and vitamins and minerals that they're getting in half, right? Because all the dog food is fortified unless you're feeding raw or doing your own thing. So it could also be that like the food that they're on isn't a good fit for your dog. So that's probably a whole other topic of conversation.
It is.
But yeah, I think that like if you're going really far below the I just went through this with Ruben, like literally just went through it with him. He started gaining weight on the food he's been eating for 5 years. So I had to switch him because I was feeding him so little food that I was like, this is ridiculous. I mean, he's not barely going to the bathroom. He's straining when he has to go to the bathroom. He's hungry because he's only getting like a little bit of food.
Half a cup.
Yeah. So I switched him to something that was that he's doing a little bit better on. But yeah, just keep your dogs fit. It's good for me too as a walker. You know, it's easier for me to feel confident that your dog's not going to get injured when they're out and about with me, because sometimes they act a little crazy. And if they're carrying a few extra pounds, it just makes it more dangerous. So yeah. And be honest with yourself too. That was a good message, Lori. Like if you're feeding extra goodies on the side.
Yeah, I think most people are. But as a gauge, you know, Buddha's 95 pounds and I feed him, I've been feeding him less because I wanted him to have more food drive for training, but a cup and a half. So if you're feeding your spayed or neutered male dog who's 95 pounds, a cup and a half or 2 cups per meal, you're feeding too much. I mean, I think that's a pretty safe bet. So when you think and the guidelines on the back that tell you how much your dog weighs and then how much you should be feeding them, usually they're overestimated.
Yeah,
so
too much.
Just look at your dog and look at their waist and see how thin they are. And if you use treats for training or you're feeding table scraps or whatever, then just take it out of their meal time so that it balances out, and be honest with how much you're giving them, like I said. Because all I see when a fat dog is taking a turn, I just worry about them blowing a knee. That's the first thing I think of.
And elbow.
Yeah, it's unfair to put our dogs in these situations where they're overweight and then we're having them do these dogs, you know, if they're doing dog sports, or even when some parents, you know, pretty cool parents, so like bike with their dog or they want to go running with their dog, and they're so thin and in shape and or just like brick shit houses, ready to go, athletic parents, and then they give their dogs things that they would never consume. And then they say, oh, he was limping after our run, or limping after we went for a bike ride, or, you know, limping when we went for a walk in the woods for 4 hours. I'm like, for God help you.
Yeah,
like
4 hours.
You just brought your fat dog over a mountain. The poor thing can barely move. He scraped up his pads. He's tired. So like you're all fit and wonderful, having a great time. And your poor dog he's tired. So if you keep yourself in shape, keep your dog in shape.
Yeah, I personally think a lot of that also has to do, well, firstly, breed, but secondly, whether or not you're going to alter your dog. I noticed a huge drop off in Ruben's stamina when he got neutered, and I do not regret neutering him one iota. We had some other issues going on with him, and it was certainly the best decision. But one thing that I did notice right away was just a drop off. I remembered the day before he got neutered, I took him mountain biking. We went on like an hour and 15 ride. That was the last hour and 15-minute ride he ever took with me. He just, if I'm riding, he could last like maybe 45 minutes before he gets just totally exhausted, and it doesn't have anything to do with his conditioning or his health or the food I'm feeding him. It's just his breed, his genetics, his stamina. He got neutered. And he's small. You know, if we're doing something like mountain biking, he's covering in 3 strides what a dog like Buddha would cover in 1.5 maybe.
Or just imagine how much they zip around back and forth.
Yep.
While you're doing a straight line.
Yep.
They're covering way more ground than you are.
Yep. Absolutely.
So yeah, neutered, we all know neutered and spayed dogs, they burn through less calories and things like that.
Yeah, and if you, for example, like I'm a pretty active person, used to do a lot of mountain biking, but love to be in the woods. Ruben used to come to work with me. He couldn't hang, you know, for once he turned like 2, you know, he couldn't do the whole day with me. I have Raven as a puppy now. She does the whole day with me and comes back and wants more, you know, so
it's so disturbing.
If you get a dog that, because you're a hiker, right? You're like, I want to hike with my dog, or I want to do this activity. If you rescue a dog, like, you might not get that dog, and that's okay. Maybe the next time, maybe get a bred dog, or maybe when you do rescue a dog, have a little bit more information about what breed they are so that you know, like, okay, this dog's like a lab mix, or this dog is a cattle dog, or whatever, so you can have a little bit maybe of a better idea if that dog is going to maybe have the stamina that you're looking for, if you're into doing those type of things. So anyway, what's next on your list there?
I don't know. Do you think we should end it there and then?
Yeah, I think that would be cool. So anyway, a couple gems in here: how to keep your dogs cool in the car, well, cool-ish in the car, and a little bit of a rant on fat dogs. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. It helps more people get to hear the podcast. And if you have any questions, you can always ask. You can follow the podcast on @FPB Talks on Instagram. And my handle is FitPet Boston, and Lori's is ABC Dog Training. Thank you so much for your listening ear, and we will see you next time.